Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the IMCO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Maddie Boening of Sunstone Candles. Maddie, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Hi, Gresh. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really
Definitely.
excited.
I'm excited as well too, and super appreciative of you taking some time out with all the awesome things that you're doing. And what I wanted to do is just read a little bit more about Maddie so you can hear about some of those awesome things. And Maddie is the passionate founder and owner of Sunstone Candles, which was established in Catonsville, Maryland during August 2016. Maddie specializes in the craft of candle making using 100% soy wax and excels in creating extraordinary fragrances. Maddie has been passionate about helping others all throughout her life and now aims to help others find their own light through the Sunstone Candles Community. Maddie has successfully grown her handmade candle business, which started as a very grassroots operation, into a versatile and flexible aromatherapy business, which operates in both B2C and B2B capacities. Maddie, great to have you again on the show. Are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I am. I'm ready.
Awesome. Well, let's do it then. And I know I touched on it a little bit, what I like to call your CEO story, to hear about how you got started. Can you take us through a little bit more about that and what led you get started with the business?
Sure, absolutely. So like you mentioned, Sunstone started as a very grassroots operation. And what I mean by that is I started making candles in my kitchen in my one-bedroom apartment in Catonsville. And I didn't know it at the time, but to do my market research, so to speak, I took my candles to a local farmer's market. And to my surprise, to be honest, I sold out. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll try that again. And I did, and I made as many candles as I could, and it was a lot of trial and error at that time. And I found a lot of success in person at the farmers market, so I expanded to craft shows and all kinds of different festivals. And one day a door opened to wholesale. A lady approached me and she asked me if I sell my candles wholesale. And at the time, I didn't know what wholesale meant. but but instinctively I was like, yes, I do, absolutely. And that got me into my first store. It was in Towson, Maryland, and that opened more doors. She had a friend in another state, and they placed a wholesale order, and then it grew organically. And I went to pretty much every main street around, and I had basically a backpack of candles and information sheets. And I said, hi, my name is Maddie. My company's name is Sunstone Candles. And I found a lot of success that way. So yeah, very grassroots operation. And I opened a store in Union Station in Washington, D.C. In November of 2019, which wasn't the best timing, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But it's grown very organically, and I think one of my favorite parts about it is interacting face to face with customers, for sure.
Yeah,
So
that makes
that's a sort of summary. There's a lot of information and stories in between all of that, but that's an overview.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And I love the story just because I think as when we first connected, we talked a little bit about the grassroots, the organic way that you were able to grow it. And it reminded me a lot of, Kevin Plank, who's kind of in our stomping ground, so to speak, that was able to kind of build everything in his grandma's basement. And when somebody asked him, did he have like a product, he didn't have any idea what it was, but his instinctive response was, of course, I didn't know how to do that. And then he started to create Under Armour for there. So I love how you kind of just stepped into it. And a lot of times we forget that a lot of times the steps kind of align themselves after the fact if you kind of know and are passionate about what it is that you do.
Yeah, I've learned to just sort of trust at this point. If I have a large goal and take small steps towards it, I know that I can build or recognize, or the steps will come.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we definitely need to know it during times like this, especially too, and knowing that sometimes if we take the steps and then, always lean towards action, as I like to say, then a lot of times those steps start to become more apparent of what we should or shouldn't do. And so I know we touched a little bit upon like how you work with your clients, the B2B and the B2C piece. Could you take us through a little bit more of that and how you serve the clients you work with?
Sure. So, my favorite thing to do still is going to markets and in-person vendor events. So I still do a lot of that. And like I mentioned, I had the retail store. I have an online presence where I sell directly to customers. So that's the B2C. And then B2B is wholesaling and subscription boxes and things along those lines.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And again, I love how, you've been able to kind of distinguish, those two aspects of business. And I think, being able to have kind of like a holistic type business where you're able to kind of lean on both during certain times, one might be stronger than the other or vice versa. So it sounds like a really strong base.
Yeah, yeah. I would say last year it was about 50-50 split between it. But now that it's spring and vendor events are opening back up again, online is actually picking up recently. So I would say it's more towards 70-30 right now.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, and I love the phrase that you use. When you were telling your story as well too, that market research. And I think so many times, as entrepreneurial people, we become in love with our ideas. But I think, as you said so well, being able to kind of sit down and have that direct interaction, be able to do those sales directly there at those markets allows you that opportunity to know, if your product is potentially good or what adjustments you can make, and then it gives you that kind of face-to-face market research, so it does provide that potential opportunity to scale.
For sure. For example, yesterday I was at a pop-up event and somebody asked for unscented candles, which I had just one small decorative one, but they wanted like a large one. So you know what? Next time I go somewhere, I'll have unscented candles. So it's definitely every time I go somewhere, I feel like I learned something.
Yeah, and I always feel like that's how you kind of stay, I guess, for lack of a better term, ahead of the trends, because you're having those interactions, and before you know it, those are things that people are looking for, and you've already been kind of, creating those products or creating that service or whatever it might be, because people are having those questions, and you're able to kind of stay attuned and listen to those potential opportunities.
For sure.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I wanted to ask you now for what I call your secret sauce. And this can be for yourself personally or your business or a combination of both. But what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
Um, well, I think the word resilience comes to mind. And I think that that's very important. And I can say from like a business idea standpoint that the experience of my product and there being a surprise crystal inside, it's a very clean burning product overall. It's what I hope is a very good experience for the people who buy them. And so that's what I could say on a product standpoint, secret sauce wise. But from an entrepreneurial or CEO leader standpoint, I would say resilience. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that, and I think that's definitely been. I don't want to call it a buzzword, but it's something we've all had to kind of tap into. That resilient piece, especially in this day and age. But I love what you said too about the product, because I think so many times we can get caught up in, and not to say they're not important, marketing and numbers and all of those things, but it really goes a long way to have a really high quality product and create that experience that you spoke to. And sometimes that's the best marketing strategy you can ever have, is have something quality. So I love that you mentioned that, and how that coupled with the resilience, the ability to be able to kind of go through, sometimes what might be trying times, to be able to kind of understand and kind of roll up your sleeves and know that you'll find a way.
And what I found to be really important, and it's something honestly that I've had to grow as a skill. It's not something that has come naturally, but to be able to try to stand in your customer's shoes and build whatever would be the best experience or best product for them. Um, but that, yeah, that has helped a lot. And lately, I've been doing custom candles, and it brings me so much joy to see the joy that it brings them. So maybe there's something to say for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I love that word experience, because I think so many times we don't realize in this day and age, especially too, um, we don't sometimes translate like what it is that we're creating or building to an experience and to realize it's more than just a thing. That's why I love kind of deepening the definition of what it is that you're doing, because if you're creating that experience, especially if you're creating something that's custom, it is putting you kind of in tune with what exactly your clients are potentially looking for. And I think it's an exercise that we all should practice on a regular. And again, it provides sometimes those opportunities that we never thought were around.
For sure. Yeah.
Awesome. 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 So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I want to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Hmm. Well, in my immediate vision, I see several whiteboards on my wall. So that's an easy answer. Yeah, whiteboards help me a lot. It helps me organize. I have a paper calendar. I'm very old school in that way, I guess. But resource wise, I want to give recognition to local organizations that help entrepreneurs, because that I when I sit back and like reflect on the last several years of growing my business, so much of my knowledge on business came from those local resources for entrepreneurs. Now, I didn't go to college for business or anything, so I don't have any formal education like that, but I'm a big believer that life can teach you a whole lot. Um, but you do have to learn things like accounting and how to make a business plan and how to do marketing because that's ever changing. Um, so I would really encourage people to utilize the local resources that are there for entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely love both of those kind of resources, and definitely if I look around as well too, I see a lot of whiteboards, a lot of writing in different places. So it's always important to have, I think, create space so that you're able to kind of do those exercises and think through ideas. And the best way is just to have it kind of all around you, so you're able to kind of write down any ideas or kind of do brainstorming as it comes around. But that resource piece is absolutely huge, because I think so many times, and you go through your business, we realize that we usually all kind of have our lane or things that we kind of do or know better than other parts. And it's so important to kind of lean on resources, whether that be people, organizations, like you said so well. But you can't really do it all alone. So it's so important to know what you know and know what you don't know and where you can find what you don't know so that you can
Yeah,
succeed.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That there's an old saying about that. You have to know what you don't know.
Hmm. Absolutely. And that's true power in knowing your lane and being able to kind of lean in on that and find somebody else or a partner or a resource that you can kind of round ourselves out as leaders.
Yeah, you won't get very far trying to do it all by yourself. Speaking from experience, I tried and I hit a wall. You can only go so far by yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's,
But
it's, it's
that was long ago. And specifically to speak to like workshops, there are a lot of like pay what you can sort of thing, which is amazing. Workshops and networking. Don't underestimate networking for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm definitely one of those people as well too, that have tried to go really, really far, by yourself and try to do everything. But there's just so much that that's in running a business that it's really hard, if not. I don't want to say impossible because I don't like using that word, but it's pretty high up there as far as like what it takes to really run a successful business. And the best way to do that is to lean on the resources, the people, and networking, building relationships, and is a great way to do that.
Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. So this could be a word of wisdom or piece of advice. It might be something you would tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Um, I I want to emphasize or maybe rather break down resilience, especially because it's so relevant recently. But just as a business owner, you really have to have a grasp over your mind, because there are so many thoughts to be had, and there are so many things to do, and you'll get tired and It's really treacherous, if you will, mentally. Um, but the resilience, well, first of all, you have to put yourself first. You have to take care of yourself physically and mentally, because if you don't, you will, what's the word, burn out. You will burn out. It's unavoidable. It will happen. So you have to take care of your health. You have to feel good for your mind to work well, to put it simply, I guess. And when I think about what I think makes a person resilient, as to have that as a characteristic, I think it's a combination of having people around that are willing to support you and having a mission to work towards. So I think if you can establish those two things and then just kind of focus on them and keep your eyes on that when the days are hard and long, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I truly appreciate you breaking that down. And as you said so well, like it's very timely and necessary, during this time where everything seems to have been disrupted and changed, to have that resilience sometimes comes down to, like, I think there was even a quote that I read where it was saying that you don't have to be passionate about your business to start a business, but because it can be so hard and so trying and mentally exhausting, that passion is sometimes the only, for lack of a better term, light at the end of the tunnel, the only thing that can kind of keep you going, because sometimes those times are really, really difficult. And if you have that passion, and as you said so well, are able to build and know that environment of resources, of people and organizations sometimes to lean on, that what is kind of building our foundation to kind of see us through to whatever success might be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Maddie, truly appreciate that. And now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So, Maddie, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Um, a CEO specifically, I think. So I'm a very literal person. My brain is very literal. And so chief executive officer, right, to break that down, the word leader comes to mind for me. And that can be broken down into a lot of things to be a leader. Um, and I think that every CEO and every entrepreneur should take time to think about who they are as a leader and what they want to lead people towards. Because how can you be effective as a CEO if you aren't trying to lead towards a common mission, I guess? You have to know what you're working towards. So when you ask me what I think, what CEO means to me, it's very strategic and it's very intentional, um, and it's very about the people. For me, that's the sort of leader that I feel like I am. It's about the people. So
Nice. I love that definition and that perspective, and definitely those words is, that stuck out to me were strategic, intentional, and the people. And I think so many times, as you said so well, like we often will jump into like, oh, a CEO is this, this, and this. But I think if we don't do that inner work, so to speak, and understand ourselves, understand what kind of drives us, what our passion is, our mission that you mentioned earlier is, even personally, I think when you're able to align that with the extensions of ourselves, with our sometimes our businesses or organizations and things that we do, when that alignment happens, that's when true leadership, to me, as you said so well, kind of takes off, because it's not even that it's something that is separate from you, it's a part of you, and everything you're doing is in alignment with yourself personally, but also the organization. And when you have that alignment, that's when things go to another level, in my opinion too.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Maddie, truly appreciate that definition, and I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is just pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know, and of course how best they can get a hold of you and find out about all the awesome things that you're working
So you can get a hold of me. My website is sunstonecandles.com. I keep an updated schedule of what in-person events that I'll be at if anyone wants to come meet me in person. Like I said, that's my favorite part of things. But you can also email me and introduce yourself that way. Um, What I'm working on next, like I mentioned, I had the retail store in DC. Bad timing, but that's okay. It happens. So now I'm really focusing on those in-person events and figuring out what I can do online. And I thought of a good idea last week, and it's to do little like flights have been popular recently, like with iced coffee. I've seen a local honey place do it. So I'm gonna make small little tester and sell them in packs like earthy or floral or fresh and clean sort of thing. And they'll be like sampler packs. So be on the lookout for those. Um, and I think that I just want to say to be sure to maintain a sense of humility, because I feel like so many folks have their guards up these days. Um, but humility and to know that you don't have to do it all alone, for one, that there's people around to help, that it's totally fine to have help, to accept help. Um, and being a leader or a CEO or entrepreneur is really about soft skills and not so much about technical skills. So yeah, I think that's my closing thought.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I absolutely appreciate and love that, Maddie. We will definitely have the links and information in the show notes so that everybody can find out what events they're at and all the awesome things that you're doing. But I love kind of like those last points as well too, because I think we sometimes forget about the human aspect of business. And I love that you mentioned that people part in your definition as well too, because I think we forget about that. And going in line with being resilient, understanding the mental part of running a business. Sometimes there's ups and downs, and things get shaken and turned upside down, and we forget about that human part. We forget about sometimes the really high highs, but the really not so high lows that we kind of go through.
Yeah.
And if we have that peace and knowing that we don't have to do it all ourselves, that it's okay if things don't always work out well, that's the best piece we can have, because we can always just try to put our best foot forward. So I appreciate you so much, for doing that and talking about that resilience piece and then the passion and all those things, because it's something that we often forget. And I appreciate obviously all the awesome work that you're doing as well too.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
You're definitely very welcome.